I just want to come on here and just say, when it comes to phones, it's hard to keep phones charged. My old phone kept on dropping down from 100% all the way down to zero. And yet it's hard to keep your phone charged. It's hard to keep from getting your phone locked for whatever reason and any other reason. So it's kind of hard to basically keep phones and what have you. And I just had to grab my my kitty cat. And also, phones are hard to like keep from getting locked. And it's kind of hard to want to keep your phone from locking and ending up having one's own device being it's kind of hard. And most people end up going and getting a new phone. And it starts becoming an issue. Some stores don't carry the exact same make and model if you get locked out of your device or what have you. And it's kind of hard to keep the same phone. And with phone numbers constantly getting changed and recycled, people recycling used phone numbers that was previously owned by somebody else, instead of making up new phone numbers, a combination of numbers for somebody to call that hasn't been put together before. And it's kind of hard to imagine, and very difficult to imagine, somebody absolutely going from ending up having a way to enjoy having the same phone. Yeah, my kitty is right here. The guys my content, most likely would enjoy a little series I'm gonna be starting at some point in time. And it's about pets. And I do it I do have a long history of having devices, Some of them break, some of them don't, and some of them just end up like not doing too good. And some of them just shut off because they're so old or heavily used. And yeah, so let me know if you guys understand why, like, keeping the same phone is extremely difficult. So yeah, it's kind of like hard, like I said numerous times, to emphasize. And it would be a lot much more easier and less stressful and less difficult if like phones could like be like constantly being used for 10 or maybe 20 years without them becoming obsolete after a couple or maybe 2 or 3 years and needing to get a new phone. I had to get a new phone. My old one locked on me twice and I lost access to everything on that phone. I lost access to everything on that phone. It's not exactly fun to have one's own phone, old phone, lock on them twice in one single year. Mind you, it's just not easy. Especially when phones have a bad habit of dying or locking or getting old, becoming a piece of junk, getting viruses, getting malware, getting software problems, getting viruses on one's own devices.
Dude, I'm trying to make a video and just scratching yourself.
And there's like numerous things that makes it so difficult. So difficult to absolutely have a way to keep one's own phone from going from like shutting down and all that other stuff. It's much difficult. And with that being said, having one's own phone just crapping out on you, losing account information, losing the ownership and use of your phone number, and your phone locking on you twice or locking on you, you resetting things, and then basically ending up having to like get like a new phone because your phone locked on you or something going wrong with your device. Now if they had have just made like phones not able to break down after 2 or 3 years of use, and making sure your phone doesn't make you lose all your stuff, and even losing access to your socials, your basically all of your socials and stuff, and losing account information, and anything like that. It's not exactly easy. Not exactly easy. And with that, being the one thing that could possibly be a problem when it comes to technology, it's just not enjoyable to have one's own phone being not enabled to basically stay within being usable for 10 or 20 years. And it seems like those kinds of phones that get 10, 20, maybe 30, 40, 50 years of use are the landline phones. And the landline phones end up working for much longer. Like, I grew up in an era where landlines were way more popular than mobile phones. And mobile phones weren't widespread like it is now. Mobile phones have become the standard in this day and age. Mobile phones weren't as widespread back in the 90s. Only those who were either in gangs, celebrities, rich people, business owners, only those who could afford a $200, $300, $400, $500 bill based on a building up to $500 every single week of pure use. And buying the phone for like $100. If you're a rich kid and you took out $100 from your wallet that was given to you by alongside a fat stack in your wallet, you had a cell phone back then. And with that cell phone type of thing, that wasn't as widespread like it was these days. Nowadays, everybody has a mobile phone. And I grew up in an era, a really weird era where mobile phones were niche, underground, and not widespread as it is now, because so many TV commercials were advertising smartphones these days, and advertising cell phones, mobile cell phone devices back then on television. And with that, it's kind of hard to end up like a lot of people back in the 80s, back in the early 80s, thought, oh, this is just sci-fi. This is never going to happen when it comes to get smartphones. It was predicted that back in the early 80s that we were going to get smartphones. But it took a full 30 years before we got smartphones. And just took a little bit of time to get here. Smartphones were a thing of science fiction back in the early 80s and back in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe mid 70s, early 80s. Like cell phones weren't even a thing back in back before the 80s. A lot of people still used landlines back then. Landlines were a thing. It wound up going from like those Morse code things to straight up smartphones, where people made the beeping, that funky beeping sound, like when they were like tapping, like with those kinds of like devices making those kinds of like sounds. That was the phone, the first ever landline to ever be made. Then you had the like a phone that is held like this, that took over within 40 years after the original like Morse code phone. And then woo, right into the rotary phones, the pecking on the keyboard of the landline phone with the spiral phone cord that had like a boop 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 boop, that kind of like landline type of phone, and then hanging like being like hello 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 hello, then hanging up that kind of phone. And it was going from there to having like cordless phones. Some of them had like glowing caller ID screens with the glowing buttons. Some of the buttons were plastic. Some of them were like soft rubber based plastic. And what has seemed to be a part of that was it was like going in, and it was like a really weird thing. And then we had like blocky, like brick looking cell phones of the 90s and brick cell phones of the 80s. And like the cordless phones were still landline locked. And those brick-based cell phones that were put in cars back in the 80s. And only the rich could have cell phones in their cars back in the 80s. That was a thing back then. Only those rich yuppies had vehicle-only cell phones right in the console between the front seats. Only the rich yuppies could afford something like that back in the 80s. but a lot of people were like still using landlines back then. And then cell phones, the flip phones and Blackberries and other types of phones like the Nokia phones, flip phones, and those Blackberry phones, and those phones that go like this when it comes to like texting, and like this when it comes to like dialing up a phone number to call somebody. Those kinds of like versatile phones that were versatile cell phones in the early to mid 2000s. And then here we are now. Smartphones. And people want to like make fold-upable smartphones. Transparent smartphones. Flexible smartphones. They're trying to go into the sci-fi era of mobile communication devices. And hey, it is what it is. And it's kind of hard to put into words about how people failed to understand that only a small handful of people back in the late 70s was sketching smartphone, like sketching cell phones, like sketching cell phones and stuff like that, and they wound up going and just like running around letting people know for like 2 or 3 years before 1984, like 1984 or 1983, like letting people know for 4 or 3 years that we were going to get cell phones. And lo and behold, we had cell phones all in the 80s alongside landlines, and also in the 90s alongside landlines and cordless phones. And cell phones were still like niche, underground, and not very widespread like it is now. You either had to be in your teens or a full-grown adult. A full-fledged, most likely a full-fledged adult to have a cell phone back in those days. And kids these days have like open access to the internet through cell phones that are smartphones actually. And ever since then, the COSA Act, the COPPA Act, and all that other anti youth internet surfing type of rights type of thing. A lot of kids were pissed, and even teenagers were pissed. We didn't have COSA back when I was growing up. We didn't have COSA. Kids were having flip phones, Blackberries, and versatile type of phones. We had flip phones, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and some flip phones from like the early 90s were the ones that were mobile. Just like those brick-based cell phones that was depicted in like TV shows like the Boondocks with that old brick-based phone, and also back in back in the 80s with mobile phones, and also like having being depicted in Grand Theft Auto not San Andreas, but in Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, like phones like those, and then in Saved by the Bell with that very protagonist Zach Morris having a brick-based cell phone. Because you see, getting one's own phone number and paying for one's own phone bill, that all took either card or cash. It mostly took cash to get the card. And it was basically a problematic type of thing back then. It was hard, it was difficult, it was stressful, it was strenuous and tedious to try to get your phone, your like a mobile brick phone bill paid. And then, bam. It was difficult back then. But these days, it's slightly easier, but slightly not. It's kind of like getting like a weird middle ground between easy and straight up headache to do so. And what's happened is that when we started getting smartphones, a lot of people wound up getting these smartphones, and then it started with the flip phones back in the early 90s. That was the first ever pocket-based cell phone that was flip phone based back in the 90s. And in the early 2000s, they slimmed it down. Over the years, they slimmed down the flip phones. And with the smartphones, it's just a touch screen. You can't flip it like you would with a flip phone. And the whole versatile Blackberries and other types of phones, it was speaking the transition. It was a transitional period. Like phones that are Blackberries and other stuff like that, like the Blackberry type of phones. It was a transitional period, moving away from the brick-based phones through flip phones, through BlackBerry type of phones, now to smartphones. People really like to move from one generation of phones to another. But personally for me, I ended up having I had like a flip phone big time back in the day before I had a smartphone. I had a Net 10 phone. That was my first phone. My first cell phone. I had plenty of other flip phones during that time. And I moved from flip phones to smartphones because people were going away with the flip phone trend. And the flip phones go from like hello, 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 and then shut. And you had to buy ringtones. You had to buy ringtones. And it cost you minutes to get. It cost you like minutes, and you had to like spend those minutes to get like a new ringtone downloaded. But with smartphones, you could download a song or some audio or record your own audio to use as a ringtone. So yeah, that's what happened. Going from going and just having wasting all of your minutes in order to have like a feverish attempt to get a new ringtone, to basically not use the default ringtone on the phone. And it costs you like a lot of minutes to get a ringtone, and you had to buy it over the same device and download it. And it was time consuming. And texting on those phones was a problem. You had to go through every single one of the alphabet to get the right letter to add to the text. And you had to text with the flip phone, with such a tiny phone and tiny buttons on the keyboard part, and seeing your text on a tiny screen, and getting a text back from a friend or family member or significant other. But there was like a little time period between the 90s and the early 2000s. Pagers were still a thing back in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and the pagers went away when flip phones were coming up, and coming up in like in the terms of evolving into what we had at the time. And then those BlackBerry type phones were going and becoming a weird transition. A weird transitional period. A weird transitional time. To basically have that as a way to communicate. And then we now have like smartphones that we have nowadays. So yeah, that's just my commentary that I just had to get off my chest. Let me know if you guys understand what I've been talking about this entire time. And let me know if you all agree. So leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share the videos so you won't miss another video or live stream. Either way. And if y'all see a video summary at the bottom of this, y'all can summarize what's been talked about. I'm not entirely sure. Still waiting on that to roll out to me.